Bernie quits, but the movement rolls on. I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, as you well know by this time, Senator Bernie Sanders has suspended his presidential campaign, or at least his pursuit of the Democratic presidential nomination, leaving what appears to be Joe Biden standing alone, the remaining candidate in the field on the Democratic side. But Bernie kind of didn't quit. And by that, I mean, he talked about how the movement goes on. He talked about how he's not removing his name from the ballot in any state, that he will continue to accumulate delegates, that he plans to go into the DNC, the convention that will now happen in mid-August, in order to pressure the DNC to alter its platform. And then he's not too subtle about the way he wants to change Joe Biden. First of all, Bill, let's just take on the face of it. Let's pretend he's just suspended his campaign and nothing else. What do you think this has to say about the state of the race against Donald Trump when Bernie Sanders drops out?
I think I saw a Babylon Bee headline today, the paper of record, that said that Bernie Sanders is dropping out of the race because he's already achieved his mission of bankrupting the country and having everybody locked up indoors.
There was another Babylon Bee headline that said he had tested negative for the presidency.
Yeah, and a third one that said he wants to go and spend time locked down in his many, many homes.
That's right.
So, what do you was it you or Steve on one of our shows that said that just was obvious that Bernie didn't want to win? Was it Steve on a right angle?
It was probably Steve.
Yeah. And when Bernie handed Hillary Clinton the gift of who cares about your emails in 2016, and it's the same thing with Biden and so on. There's something about this guy that has been clear to virtually everybody that he doesn't really want to win. There's been so many opportunities where he's fluffed the opportunity to win. And to me, this kind of, well, I don't want to say Hamlet, Piglet maybe, this idea that, that I'm in, but I'm not in, I'm out, but I'm not out. It's kind of Bernie in a nutshell. He's a very, 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 he is just not there on some level. I don't mean mentally, although you could make the case for that too. I mean, he's always just seems to be the kind of guy who is rallying the troops and saying, we are going to take over this, we're going to go and we're going to take that hill. All right, come on, let's go. And then everybody starts going. He says, and I'm going to go back and make a report to battalion headquarters. It's like he's just not quite in the fight that he says he's in.
It's strange, Bill, because as you said that, it makes me think that he's the kind of guy who gets out there and attracts a bunch of people who ordinarily do not want to vote for Democrats for one reason or another, gets them all excited about the possibility that they might have a Democrat they could actually vote for, and then leaves them high and dry. And in this case, suggesting somehow that Joe Biden could do some things, or the party could do some things that would make the party and Biden appealing to the Bernie base. It seems to be a bit of a stretch, perhaps naive.
Yeah, Bernie, I know I've mentioned this a few times. Bernie's perfect job is campaigning for president. He doesn't want to be president. That's actual work involved with being president. How do you beat where Bernie Sanders is and has been since, well, really for his entire career, but really since he started to warm up in the 2016 election? You go out, you're mobbed by thousands of adoring youngsters. You get to make all these fiery speeches. If you're questioned on your policies or what it's going to cost, you don't have to have any answers because they're never going to be implemented. You know it. You get to get people fired up about things like free stuff for you. Everybody roars and screams and chants your names. You see your name on bumper stickers. I saw a Bernie bumper sticker on a $40,000 SUV the other day. And I just thought, okay, that's all you need to know. Really, not only
you've
about...
You've got to think that Bernie drives a better car than that.
Yeah, he does. And puts probably one of each into as many houses. And so really, Scott, this doesn't really surprise me because the guy is a sham. He really is. On some level, it's a con. And when I say it's a con, I mean, he claims to be selling something that he deeply believes in. Certainly the people that believe him believe that he believes. But you can't be preaching socialism and income equality if you have 3 houses. And when he was questioned about this, he said, well, I wrote a best-selling book. What do you want me to do? I wrote a best-selling book. People pay for it. What do you want me to say? What I would want to say is, well, Bernie, you're keeping all the money for this. But what about all the people that set the type? And what about the people that manufactured the paper that went into your book? And what about the people that drove the trucks delivering those books? And what about all of the other things you've always claimed about it? Always. Why didn't you take the profits of this and share it among the workers who had built your book? You're not trying to tell me you built that book on your own, are you? And the fact that he and the fact that he is able to square this circle, to be a guy who says that wealth redistribution is the number one problem in our country, and then be a multimillionaire, and then just blandly say, well, it's not my fault if people paid me for something that they wanted to buy. No fooling, Bernie. Really? No kidding. Is that how it works? People want to buy something, they pay you their money, and you keep it? That's not what you've been basically preaching.
Bill, it occurs to me that the people that are now expected to migrate over to the presumptive Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, who, of course, will radically change who he is in order to go along with Bernie, that they don't really want Joe Biden under any circumstances, nor does Joe Biden really want them. I mean, the way that Bernie talks about it now, here's a quote, and this comes from Newsweek. By the way, Newsweek still exists. It says, Joe is a good politician, and he understands that in order to defeat the president, to defeat Trump, oops, he accidentally called him the president, to defeat Trump, he's going to have to bring new people into his political world, and that he's going to have to listen to their needs, young people, working people, and maybe start moving in a direction in some degree than he has in the past. And in another place, he said he's going to work with Joe to move him in a more progressive direction.
That'll work.
It seems to me, as somebody who has run for office before, the guy who wins usually thinks that he deserved to win, and he didn't win because of, he won basically because he rejected what the losers did. What's going to inspire Joe Biden to suddenly go, you know what, that Bernie, he had some good ideas?
Well, I mean, as we've said many, many times, twice this week, in fact, Joe may move closer towards Bernie's position, but that's just Brownian motion of random molecules moving through the air. Joe doesn't know where he is or what he's doing. He's as likely to move towards Reagan as he is towards Bernie at this point. Joe doesn't know what he stands for. Joe just knows that he's running.
Well, that's what Bernie's saying. Bernie's not saying that Joe is some sort of policy wonk. He's basically saying that Joe knows that he needs to appeal to younger voters, to working people, to people under 50, basically.
You missed my point. Joe Biden doesn't know about anything.
I know exactly what your point is. Yeah. I was dodging your point because I don't want to do another episode on Crazy Joe.
Okay, so you've got Biden. I think Biden has in an attempt to move towards the left and be progressive. I think Biden made a promise a couple weeks ago that basically doomed the slim chance that he had of being president, I think. I mean, it is a really slim chance when he made a declaration that he was going to choose a woman as his running mate. Cuomo's out the door. He can't go back on that. He can't go back on that. And since everybody, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, anybody who's ever watched Joe Biden in the last couple of months knows that when the Democrats pull out their ticket for November, the person they're running for president is the vice president. Everybody is fully aware of this. Democratic columnists are saying, Joe, please, for God's sake, just live long enough, have a pulse long enough so that we can get you elected, so that whoever you pick for vice president will be able to rule and take over from Bad Orange Man. But when he says, no, I've decided it's going to be a woman, who does that leave? Any of the people that was on the campaign trail with him who pulled maybe 4 or 5% before dropping out? There's another woman in mind. I don't think she's going to be a particularly huge asset for the Biden campaign if they decide to repaint Hillary and send her out again. So back to the Bernie things, Scott. The guy he's a moral coward. I'm not saying he's a complete coward. It takes guts to run for president and all of that. But I, again and again and again, when it comes time to take the action necessary to act on your beliefs, he backs down. And I'll tell you what this reminds me of more than anything. Is another act of extreme moral cowardice from a Democratic frontrunner. And that was Hillary Clinton's reaction after she lost the election in 2016. She sent a representative out to tell the people who had been working for her, campaigning for her, believed in her, believed in their heart for her, made huge sacrifices for her. They're literally, no hyperbole here, standing outside in the rain. And instead of her coming out and saying, hey, we gave it our best shot, we failed, time to rally around the president, time to rally around the nominee, whatever the case may be, they don't have the moral courage to come out and say, we lost. And so that's what Bernie's doing. He didn't come out and say, I give up. He didn't come out and say, we lost. He said, I am putting the campaign, I'm suspending the campaign. Oh, what a brave statement that is.
Well, that's kind of technical language that every candidate uses. And I think it has to do with campaign finance law, because they're not saying they're not running for president. They're suspending their campaign, which I think has something to do with being able to hold on to your money.
Imagine. Imagine. I'm glad Bernie is clinging to his socialist principles to the end.
So here are some of the issues.
Hanging on to as much cash as he can.
Here are some of the issues that Bernie thinks that he's going to be able to move not only the convention, but their candidate further in a more progressive direction on. A $15 minimum wage, of course, mandated at the federal level. Free college and university state college and university tuition for everybody, and immigration reform. And he has this fascinating and I want to ask what you think of, the odds of Biden backing any of those things and the electability of a candidate who would. But listen to this little sentence here from Bernie Sanders. Right now, today in America, because of Trump, you've got millions and millions of wonderful people who have been in this country for decades, who are working hard. They're working right now today on dangerous jobs, but they're scared to death that they may be deported because of Trump. Now, forget whether or not that's actually true. What struck me about that was, what is he saying when it comes to immigration reform? That these are the people who are going to vote for Joe Biden if he moves in a more progressive direction? People who have been here illegally for decades?
Boy, that Bernie Sanders, man, he's got his finger on the pulse of the America right at the moment. Because right now, in the middle of this Wuhan virus lockdown, there's nothing that Americans want to hear about more than open borders. That's the one thing that they're just clamoring for right now. This argument is an argument you could have made in 2016. But for him to say that this is going on now after 4 years, kind of logical. I know logic is not the strong point of the left, right? But basically he's saying there are people in this country who are working hard and terrified to vote because they may be deported.
Well, he's not really saying they're terrified to vote. He just said they're
right?
scared to death that they may be deported. But he's talking about in the context of getting more votes for Joe Biden. So either you got to believe he thinks these people who are here illegally are going to vote, or he thinks that there's a great groundswell of support among Democrats and independents and soft Republicans who say, gee, it's a horrible thing that we've got all these millions of people here. I think I'm going to throw my vote to Joe Biden if he's willing to go with Bernie on this.
And it does kind of beg the question that if they're so terrified that they're going to be deported under a Trump presidency, and we're already talking about one full term of a Trump presidency, and presumably these people are still there, it makes you wonder if this threat is not quite as pressing as maybe Bernie makes it out to be. Scott,
and they're
he's
working.
Going to continue. And they're working, yeah. That's why they've got to be dealt with, because if they're working, they're going to want to keep more of their money, and that's the end of the Democratic Party. The thing about it to me, again, that keeps coming back to me is just the cowardice of it. It's cowardly, And for him to say, well, I'm going to suspend my campaign, but I plan to have plenty of influence on the party at the convention, First of all, I don't even know if he's going to go to the convention, but to be perfectly honest with you, Bernie, doesn't it seem likely to you that you would have more leverage at the convention if you were an active candidate who still had the ability to swing votes. You may realize that you don't have enough votes for the nomination, but surely, if you're saying that I'm going to quit but I'm going to fight hard in the convention, wouldn't your position to fight hard in the convention be enormously strengthened if you were still an active candidate?
Or for that matter, Bill, if he had dropped out and endorsed Biden, because then he'd be seen as an ally, not a threat.
Yes, I think that Bernie's endorsement of Biden will come probably within a few days of Obama's endorsement of his vice president, which I expect to see somewhere around 2023, somewhere in there. By the way, doesn't that concern you?
Joe's likable enough. That's what the endorsement is going to say.
Don't you find it odd? Don't you just find it odd that Joe Biden now is the only Democratic candidate, and he still hasn't gotten the endorsement of the person who was vice president?
There was a headline that I saw the other day that said that Democrats are now salivating because they know that Obama is going to get involved because there's no other option.
Well, Obama could have gotten involved in 2016 and could have said, Joe's my man. But he didn't. And he didn't all throughout this whole process. He didn't say it when Biden was on the ropes and looked like he was done. He didn't say it when Biden came back and basically clinched the nomination. I would be interested in asking why he's not doing that. And I get the feeling that Donald Trump is probably interested in asking that as well.
I think there are two possibilities there, Bill. Number one is that President Obama really had very little interaction with Vice President Biden, so he really doesn't know him well enough. And number two is that he knows him really well.
That's precisely it. It's either that he doesn't know him well enough, but much more likely, no, he knows exactly about him. So the final thing I'll say about this is this. Where does it leave the Bernie bros, right? Where does it leave them? I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said it reminds me of Hillary Clinton leaving her supporters actually out in the rain. What is he saying? Is he saying, well, we fought a good fight and we didn't make it? No. Is he saying, by God, we're going all the way to the convention even if we have no delegates? No. He's not saying anything. He's basically saying, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. And how you could ever have supported this guy's a mystery to me. He is the most unpleasant candidate I've ever seen. Makes Hillary Clinton look like Mary Poppins. And I still don't understand the appeal of this guy. But now, if I'm a person who said Bernie's going to change the world, and Bernie does this kind of half in, half out, kind of, we're suspending our campaign, but I'll still be. The man's a moral coward, and he always has been. He's lazy, he always has been. And he likes the spotlight and doesn't like to work, and that's always been the case with Bernie Sanders. And so he exits the scene, not with a bang, and not even with a fizzle, just kind of a check back tomorrow kind of a thing, you know?
It's a shame because he would have made an excellent vice president in a previous era. Unfortunately, President Trump has completely ruined the role of the vice presidency because he's given Vice President Pence real responsibility, and Pence has really stepped up and handled that responsibility. So it's no longer the cakewalk job that it used to be.
Old communists never die, they just fade away.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad that you have not faded away. In fact, you have only grown stronger. The members at BillWhittle.com have become more numerous during this pandemic crisis, and we are grateful for your support. A lot of you have already done this and gone to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. If you're one of the holdouts who has yet to make that last little step of just clicking that link on the website, we invite you to do so right now. We're also grateful to the support of our friends over at the Patriot Post. Not only have they been supportive of this enterprise, but they're making available to you not only a free daily newsletter that they send out with great stuff from a conservative perspective, but also a free download of the Patriots Primer on American Liberty, which you get when you sign up for the free newsletter. We'll provide a link in the description below so that you can get a hold of that right away. In the meantime, for the members at BillWhittle.com and for Bill Whittle himself, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.